Hey, what's up? Still here. What I'm gonna show you in this video is how I practice and study anatomy. So usually what I do is I pick a pose I like and do a rough sketch. This is like a gesture sketch. I don't usually go into this much detail. I just do it on pen and paper and roughly lay out the pose so I have a sense of where to place things. And this practice usually takes an hour or something. Now and then I dedicate 1 hour to just practicing anatomy, so keep my skills sharp. This is not 100% realistic. You could say, semi-stylized. I'm just using very simple shapes here, so roughly indicating the landmarks, the basic forms, and just establishing the main pose here. Okay. So once I'm happy with the pose, I go in and put in the skeleton. Again, this is very simplified skeleton. I'm not going into details, and this is the approach I'm using pretty much for anything, because the simple shapes you can memorize and remember so easily. But for example, the complex form of the skull, all the details, it's very hard to memorize. So whenever I'm drawing something, I try to remember the simple forms, the basic forms, and if I'm going to detail it, I just use reference. So this is very key. Simplicity is very important. For example, for the arms, I'm using simple squares, boxes and triangles. I'm not going into details for the feet and hands. And using these construction lines are very important as well. Whenever I'm practicing, I always use construction lines. It doesn't seem much, but it's very good in the long run for your mind to understand shapes and for you to deepen your understanding. Okay, usually I go this far with the skeleton, but for the purpose of tutorial, I'm just gonna clean up some lines. And in the pelvis, you see these two landmarks. So the upper one is anterior superior iliac spine, and the lower one is anterior inferior iliac spine. So these are important landmarks that some muscles connect. And the top one, anterior superior iliac spine, you can see pretty much all the time in the body when you're trying to find the hips in the figure. Adding some basic tone and shading to the skeleton. And we are not drawing all the muscles, we are just focusing on the important ones, the surface muscles, you could say. Okay, so the idea here is to always focus on the origins and insertions of the muscles, because the shapes of the muscles change a lot depending on the pose, but origins and insertions never change. So muscles start as a tendon and they make this bald shape, and then they end as a tendon. The starting of the muscles called origin and the ending of the muscles called insertion. So in this case, the neck muscle I'm drawing here is sternocleidomastoid, starts roughly from the back side of the head and inserts into sternum and inserts into this kind of 1/3 of the clavicle. Okay, adding in the trapezius, which is the main upper back muscle. So the idea is always I'm finding the origin, finding the insertion, so finding the starts and the ends, and then you can pretty much do whatever you want with the shapes. You can stylize the shapes. We have this muscle here called coracobrachialis. This muscle is usually ignored, but you can see this muscle when the arms are raised. You can see it underneath the biceps. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm starting with the inner muscles first, and I'm building on top of it. Okay, next we have latissimus dorsi, which is your main lower back muscles. And they start at the back. They start at the lower back, start from pelvis, and they have origins at the ribs and scapula, and they all go like come forward and join to this side part of the upper arm. Okay, and then we have pectoralis major, which is your main chest muscle. So they start from roughly 1/3 of the clavicle and all the way through sternum, and they have some origins on the ribs as well. They have this U shape as a starting point, and they make this fan shape, and they all connect to this side part of the upper arm. So muscles always go away from the torso. So for example, your pectoralis major starts from torso and goes towards your limbs. So pretty much all the muscles go towards your limbs. So they go away from your body. And another important thing to know about muscles is muscles always pull. They never push by themselves individually. But some muscles working together, they do the pushing act. But a single individual muscle never pushes, they always pull. Okay, so for the deltoids, I'm using the same technique. I'm roughly finding the starts and the ends. And once you find the starts and the ends, you can pretty much stylize the shape however you want. And then we have this muscle here called brachialis. This is a muscle underneath your biceps, and this is actually the main muscle that pulls your arm up. Biceps also pulls your arm up, but biceps pulls and turns your arm. And then we have biceps on top of it. Starts as a tendon. Since the arm is curled, it makes this bulge shape and connects to radius. So don't worry about the terms. If you are just starting, I would say just learn all the muscle origins and insertions. Alright, and then we have the triceps. We don't see them too much, but we have the basic shape of it. Okay, and then we have the forearm muscles. I usually group forearm muscles like this. So underneath the forearm we have flexors, and outside of the forearm we have extensors. So the flexors start from roughly elbow and they all end up on your wrist. So we have this muscle group, I call them rotators. They kind of rotate your arm. And then we have this small muscle here called pronator teres. So most of the time you can see a bump on the elbow. So that's mainly caused by pronator teres depending on the model. Okay, moving on to the torso. So before starting with the abs, I'm just adding these muscles called here serratus anterior. This is a muscle group that starts from back end of the scapula, and they all wrap the rib cage, and they are usually covered by the latissimus dorsi, but in the well-developed bodies you can see them, at least the lower 3 or the 4 ones. Okay, and then we have the abs. So instead of common knowledge, it's not 6 packs, there are actually 8 packs. So when I'm drawing the abs, I just take that distance between the rib cage and the pelvis, take that opening and divided it in half, and that middle point gives me the location of the belly button. And I take that upper part, divide it in half again, and that gives me the other 2 parts. And the upper smaller parts are on the rib cage, and they usually have irregular shapes depending on the model. And since this is a male model, abs would have this block squarish shape. And moving on to the external obliques, which is the muscle on the sides of the torso. And they kind of start from the ribs and they all end up in the pelvis. Some parts of them goes into pelvic opening and they have this shape like this. And their fibers go up, merge with ribs, and they match up with serratus muscles. If you are just starting learning anatomy can seem like a big monster. I would say don't worry about it. Be patient with yourself. Just make a plan and do the practice. Just commit some hours every week. It comes with time. Okay, moving down, we have the kneecaps and we have the tendons that connect the kneecaps to the lower leg. And the main leg muscles in the front is quadriceps. So quadriceps has 4 parts. We don't see the inner part here. I'm just gonna draw the 3 parts. So this one I'm drawing here is vastus medialis, which starts from this inner upper part of the upper leg and ends up connecting to the kneecap. So idea is the same. I'm just finding the origin, finding the insertion, and I'm making a bolt shape just to rough out and adding some form. Okay, next we have the middle one, rectus femoris. They start from this lower landmark I just mentioned and they connect to the tendons of the knee. And we have the one on the outside, which is called vastus lateralis. And they start from this outer side of the upper leg. And they also connect to the knee. So these are mainly the muscles that gives shape to the front of the leg. And just like shoulders, we have some muscles here that wrap around the legs. So this one is tensor fascia. This muscle is usually, when you look at the anatomical charts in medical books, merged with that fascia on the side of the leg. But I like to draw it like this. So you can think of butt muscles as like deltoid muscles. So deltoid has 3 parts. Butt muscles also have 3 parts. So this front part, the side part, which is called gluteus medius, and the back part, gluteus maximus. Okay, and then we have the longest muscle in the body, which is called sartorius, and it starts from this edge of the pelvis, that landmark, and it's a long tube-like muscle, and they follow a shape like this, and they connect to this inner wedge-like shape of the lower leg. And this muscle is kind of a landmark that's dividing front of the upper leg and sides of the upper leg. Okay, and then we have inner leg. So there are lots of muscles here. Again, I'm just grouping them and just calling them the inner leg. Unless the body is extremely well developed or doing some extreme poses, you don't really see the individual muscles here. So I'm just grouping them like so. Okay, moving on. So on the lower leg, we have this muscle beneath your calves called soleus. So it starts from this thin bone here called fibula, outer part of the lower leg. And it makes this shape and connects to the heels. And on top of those, we have the calves, which is called gastrocnemius muscles. And they start from the lower back part of the upper leg, and they wrap around the soleus and merge and connect to the tendons of the heels. Okay, and the last one here is tibialis anterior. It kind of gives a bulge shape to the front of the leg when you are looking from the sides. And we also see here the insertions of the hamstrings. So this part here between sternocleidomastoid and trapezius is mostly covered by a muscle group called levators. Lots of tiny muscles that come from your scapula and ribs, and they connect to your spine. So usually this is as far as I go. I just put in the basic shapes and practice them, maybe stylize them, play with them. Okay, so at this point I'm just fixing some shapes, fixing some lines. Alright, so this is about it. Hope this was helpful, and if you want to learn more about anatomy, I have a complete online course at ArtStation. Come join the course. I will teach you all the essentials and support you through the course. I will put the link in the description. So thanks for watching and see you next time.